And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Lakers insider for Lakers Daily, joined on this fine Wednesday late morning, I guess, Pacific time.
Yeah.
It's afternoon my time. What do you define as like late morning, early afternoon? Is early afternoon specifically noon, or does that get into the 11th hour?
I would say early afternoon is like 12 to 1, maybe even like 1 to 2, but yeah.
And then like late morning is 10, I guess,
I think
10
this
to
is the
12.
exact window of late morning, yeah.
Okay. All right. That's Sabrina Merchant. She is of The Athletic. She's the person who I go to with those serious life questions about, breakdowns of noons and mornings and evenings and nights and stuff.
Mhm.
Um, the plan originally, I'm going to be honest, was to record this and then release it later in the afternoon. But we had legitimately like groundbreaking news couple hours or so before we went live as Adrian Wojnarowski decides to hang him up. He's going to hang up that old BlackBerry and that old iPhone. He probably had one of each. He's going to go be the GM at St. Bonaventure, his, where he is an alumni of. Anybody who followed him knows that was his honest to God passion. That was it would be the craziest thing during transaction windows to get like, ooh, save the Bonnie's got another big win. I'm like, no. So we're going to be
Loves
talking
Bonnie's,
about
yeah.
that. The reason we were going to be coming on, I was going to have Sabrina on, as I promised earlier in the week, and blackmailed us blackmailed her thus to come onto the show, was to talk about the WNBA playoffs, which kick off on Sunday, and talk about this WNBA season to this point. And then right before we went live, I sent Sabrina a picture of the Lakers jerseys so that we can get her thoughts on that potentially as well. An absolutely loaded show. Sabrina, are you ready for this? I'm sorry to just kind of be like, all right, here's everything.
Well, I resent the implication of blackmail because that suggests you have something on me and you have nothing on me, Anthony.
That's true. You have so much more on me. That's fair. You could just point to like Slack and it's like, okay, whatever you want, Sabrina, you got it. So this Woj thing is insane. It's absolutely insane. Quick reminder, please do hit that subscribe button. Please do hit that like button. Follow wherever you get your shows, blah, blah, blah. Insane. Like the more that I think about it, Sabrina, the crazier it gets. Not necessarily from a perspective, from Woj's perspective, because that lifestyle seems legitimately awful. I've dipped my toe into the reporting waters and my toe fell off. It's a terrible place to exist. You can't have a life. You're always on your phone. The fact that Woj is going from that to the just underbelly of NCAA sports to be to deal with NIL stuff and considers out a vacation a passion project really says something about like what all he was living through. So I'm not all that surprised from a human being standpoint. But the thing about Woj is like executives, agents, players, league, like other league personnel, ESPN person, like at every level of the NBA, Woj trafficked in information and it was a legitimate currency. Something that I experienced when I was reporting on the JJ Redick thing, where like the Lakers held off on announcing it when they did, or when they could have, because they wanted to make sure Woj got the scoop and Shams got the scoop. Like that kind of thing happens all the time and happened all the time. It's going to continue to happen. But like the more that I think about like the NBA without Woj, like part of me feels like it might be a good thing. Part of me feels like it's just going to be like a hornet's nest from here on out.
Mhm.
What was your immediate like thought once you got this final Woj bomb?
Yeah, I mean, I liked what he wrote in his message. Time isn't an endless supply, and I want to spend mine in ways that are more personally meaningful. I haven't really read anything Woj has written in a long time, but
Yeah.
that's kind of beautiful.
He is
um,
actually a really good writer.
Very good writer. We forget
Yeah.
that now that he's gone into, news breaking and draft thesaurus mode, that he, got his start 37 years ago, right? As just
Yeah.
a good old fashioned reporter, and he's written books, obviously, um, made people very upset with things that he's written. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not terribly surprised. Like, just the balance of athletics has changed so much. I mean, we at the Athletic just lost one of our best college basketball writers, Dana O'Neill, who left to take a job as an assistant AD at Villanova.
Mhm.
So, the way the NCAA is changing, it's just created all of these more interesting openings for people. So, the idea that Woj would want to take on a new challenge, especially at his alma mater at St. Bonaventure, like, makes a lot of sense. And as you mentioned, the lifestyle of being a newsbreaker just seems personally miserable all the time. Like, I remember
Yeah.
talking to Shums once, like, about how he just doesn't drive because he doesn't wanna miss anything, like, he's gotta be on his phone all the time, whether that's in an Uber, because he can't bear to, like, not be
Yeah.
present for 15 minutes, which just seems miserable at all the time.
Yeah.
And to be doing this for as long as Woj has, where he's basically created this industry, he's personally mentored, I imagine, most of the other people who consider themselves newsbreakers in this space, or at least the prominent ones.
Yeah. Anybody
Um,
ready to take that baton?
yeah. I do think that there's gonna be a ton of people who are trying to fill that baton.
Yeah.
You know, Shams obviously becomes like a de facto leader in the space more so than he already has been. Jake Fisher, it's going to make the media free agency wars exponentially more interesting because, Woj has created this vacuum at ESPN. But I think it's good for him. Obviously, he's super passionate about the Bonnies. I think it's going to reflect, in the job that he does there, and for him to find something that gives him this kind of purpose and joy at this point in his life, like, that's commendable and admirable and something that I think we should all aspire to, frankly.
I think there's a lot there. Like, I was gonna mention how, I was gonna go in a different direction, but I actually think there's a certain beauty to I've conquered this thing. I've There's no further place to climb, or I guess there were other places to climb. Like, the Denver Nuggets just hired Mike Singer. They gave him some, whatever title, very tech bro-y title or whatever. And
Intelligence
his
and
job is to
strategy, I wanna say.
yeah, like, but his job is to, like, parlay all of the contacts that he has around the league, and with other friends in NBA coverage and at, again, various levels of the league to, hand that intel over to the Nuggets. I actually think, we've already seen Lee Jenkins do that. The Thunder have somebody whose name I'm forgetting, and I shouldn't
Royce
be.
Young, right?
Yeah, Royce Young. Like, I actually think, like, in the next, like, 5 years, it wouldn't surprise me if every team employed a longtime beat reporter in that type of capacity, and then the Lakers would be like the 30th team to do it 7 years or so down the road. Like, so I guess Woj could have been like the nth degree higher there for some organization, but the fact that he was like, no, this is a thing that I
I
actually
mean,
truly care about.
if you were a single NBA entity, like, how could you possibly hire Woj and not think that he's just back channeling things just subconsciously to every other team in the league? Like, I don't think you could ever have that personal relationship with Woj as an NBA team. That's why I think
I
he could only move to college.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I think more agents than teams, because I do think he's like a very loyal guy, right? Like, when he went to ESPN, he was retweeting everything that they wanted him to retweet, and he was, propping up everybody that was working under him within NBA ranks. Had a good relationship with Schefter as well, so I think he's loyal enough. The agent thing is where it gets a little muddy, where those waters get a little bit muddy, but no, but the fact that he basically is just like, no, you know what? Like, this is I think the reported contract, his last reported contract was in the ballpark of like 7 million a year. So he's doing fine financially.
I think he
Um,
walked away from $20 million. That's obscene.
yeah. Yeah. Well, but like, he's doing so again, like, how much do you need?
Sure.
And this is taking place, by the way, at a time where NBA players are trying to hold on to every single potential penny that they can get, and $20 million is going to be like the vet min in 12 years or so. It's so fascinating to me because I think a lot of people have like a certain vision of Woj that has a lot to do with, just like the crazy, and he was this competitive. He was, there was certainly kind of the for lack of a better term, ugly side to sports news breaking and that currency or whatever that you need to have. But he also was like, you talk to, I've seen countless stories today on Twitter about the times that Woj would just reach out and say, pass along a kind word about a story that somebody wrote. Or if you bumped into him at Summer League, he would be as giving as he could be with his time, given how busy he was there. Like, and you talked earlier about like the writing that like he got away from and stuff. And there's just a lot more to him. And I think this is, again, like the human standpoint, totally understand this move. The basketball NBA landscape without him, though, that's where things get really tricky. Like, I'm really kind of rooting for the democratization of information. Like, somebody's going to try to step into that role. Maybe it's Shams, maybe it's Haynes, maybe it's both of them and Wendy and the other collection of talent that they have there. But that's more what I'm getting at. Like, let it be a few people. Let more people have access to this stuff, and let more people kind of tell versions of the stories that actually make sense, because sometimes they didn't. And I'm really kind of curious what that would kind of look like. Any other final Woj thoughts before we move on to the W?
I mean, his reach was just everywhere. Like anybody who ever had like a moment in the NBA, they connected with Woj, and then that relationship lasted forever. Like I think about all of these breaking news things that happened with USC women's basketball over the last year, and Woj does not cover college women's basketball, but because Lindsey Gottlieb was the coach there and she had a couple years for the Cleveland Cavaliers, those scoops always went to Woj, and he was always the one,
Yeah.
big transfer extension for Lindsey Gottlieb. So it is interesting just to think about like the reach that he's had, like all of his tentacles all over the sport. I think it's going to be tremendously useful for St. Bonaventure. But I am interested to see like if it's just, an all powerful Shams and Jake Fisher that, fill this vacuum, or
Yeah.
if we do see just like more segmentation of like the news breaking landscape.
Yeah. I think that the latter would be the healthiest, personally.
I agree.
But
Monopolies are not good for anyone. Antitrust all the way.
there we go. See, again, like just Sabrina being smarter than me. But the W is wrapping up, I think, pretty easily its most fascinating season ever, right?
Mhm.
It's just been on a variety of levels. Obviously incredibly fruitful, record-breaking numbers across the board. Interest in this league is just off of the charts. With that comes some growing pains, and I think the discourse, obviously, that's the thing that I was texting you the most about over the course of this season, was just like, why is this so annoying? Why do we have to be so annoying about this, well, about this one, this? Obviously it was a Caitlin Clark thing, and the discussion that broke off from there. But without even dipping into the discourse, this being the most successful W season ever, how likely do you think it is that they build on this? They take advantage of this, incredible forward momentum?
I kind of think they have like this lightning in a bottle with Caitlin Clark, right? And
Yeah.
there have been these, meaningful but like measured gains the WNBA has made over the past few years. We've been thinking about all of these like different metaphors to try to explain what's happening in the W relative to the NBA, just because that's the easiest way for people to understand. And like I know people have tried to make like the Caitlin Angel Magic Bird comparison, but I think it's more instructive to think of like Stewie and Asia as Magic and Bird, and then Caitlin is like the Michael Jordan accelerant that really just makes
Yeah,
everything,
I like that a lot more.
hit. And
Engelbert got in some trouble, right? Thinking of it
Yes,
from the
yes.
Magic Bird perspective,
Yeah,
and
it's not that
yeah,
she got in trouble for thinking of it as Magic Bird. She got in trouble for saying that it doesn't matter if my players are bullied online so long as we're making money off of it. That's
right.
basically what she said.
Racism's fine if we're
It's
doing okay. Like,
profitable, yeah.
bottom lines, yeah. Have you not seen Floyd Mayweather's career? That was healthy. Like,
Super healthy, yeah. So obviously there have been, missteps along the way in terms of how, the league itself has responded to racism and misogyny and all sorts of things. And that's, I think, unfortunately, the way that women are covered versus men is just part and parcel of the package, and we're just gonna have to
yep.
work through that. But I do believe that like the Caitlin Clark phenomenon is not going anywhere. She is still as massively popular as she was at Iowa. She is, commanding sellouts every single time she plays in a basketball arena. The viewership
And more
numbers are
importantly, like living up to the hype, right?
living up to the
Like,
hype too, right.
you
From a
know,
business perspective, like, she has been everything the WNBA could have hoped for, and then from a basketball perspective, she's also been, I think, like, a top 10 player this year, which is, I don't know, the the expectations for Caitlin were, like, all over the ballpark. There were some that were, like,
yeah,
really trying to tamp them down, some that were like, "Oh my god, she's gonna be the very best player in the league right away," and, I'm not sure that this is, like, the middle because like, 10 out of 144 is not the middle, but I think this is, like, a good landing spot
yeah.
for Caitlin, where there's clearly ways for her to grow still, but she has made an immediate impact and, been fun to watch and successful and, but also, like, clearly Indiana is not the best team in the league. She is not the best player in the league. There's plenty more for her to do. But I do think just the continued success of college basketball and the fact that like Paige Beckers is a household name and Juju Watkins is going to be a household name, like all of these things are just going to feed into the WNBA going forward. So we're going to have more and more people like Caitlin coming in, and maybe they're not going to be Caitlin Clark level because this is unlike anything we've ever seen before. But even if
Yeah.
they are Angel Reese level or Cameron Brink level, like that's still good enough to keep the momentum going when you have the, like I said, like the accelerant that is Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, I think that, the W has done a pretty good job all year of, like, yes, Caitlin is the focus. Like, she's naturally going to be the focus. Like, anytime you mention Caitlin Clark online, the numbers on the piece that you wrote go up. The numbers of views that you get on YouTube go way up. The
Mhm.
numbers of listens to a podcast go way up. But also it's um like the other players, I don't want to call them other players, but like the stars who were already there have
Mhm.
done enough to be like, no, like, not just, no, we've always been here from a verbal standpoint, but going out and showing, like Asia Wilson going out and scoring 1,000 points for the first time in
Mhm.
WNBA history, right? And any number of other things, other accomplishments that these other legitimate superstars have done to be like, yeah, she's great and she's great for us, but look
Mhm.
what we can also do. And look
Right.
how interesting these stories can be if we try to like circle things back around to the basketball aspect of all of this. And that's where I think the WNBA has been the most successful in kind of, there's always going to be talk. People are always very online, but I do think it's a lot more isolated to Twitter than it is actually extending into real life, because in real life, the girls in this league, the women in this league are doing insane things, absolutely bananas things. And it's only going to get even more incredible as Caitlin Clark gets older and her game matures. And like you said, Beckers gets into the sport, and Juju Watkins eventually gets into the sport. Like, all of these things, I think, when I ask about the forward momentum for the W, the players are going to drive it. And I say players plural very
Mhm.
purposefully, because it's not just Caitlin. They've all gone out and shown, yeah, we are special. This is a really special moment in sports history. And I think they're doing a good job of reminding us of how great they are as basketball players too. Speaking of the basketball, the playoffs do start on Sunday. The New York Liberty obviously leading the way. And you said before we went here live that Atlanta's probably going to get that final spot.
Mhm.
um, how surprising is it that Indiana gets a playoff spot here? Was that something people had on the docket?
So again, like I said, the expectations were just all over the place for what Indiana could be capable of. I I just wanted to look back to like what I had said at the start of the season just to remind myself, because a lot of things have happened over the last 4 months and I wanted to make sure that like
Yeah.
I'm recalibrating based on what I thought. So I had Indiana projected to finish 7th in the league.
Mhm.
And I said, if they can avoid Vegas or New York in the first round, I could see them winning a playoff series. And I feel very good about that prediction
Yeah,
because
well
that is
done.
exactly how I feel about where the Fever have landed. They've been a really good offensive team, terrible defensive team, but like just average enough since the break to, make things okay. Basically, if they hold their opponents under 84 points, they're in business. And since 84 is like well above what an average team scores, like that's not exactly good defense, but it's enough defense for what Indiana needs to do. Um, I think, Caitlin has probably been about as good as I could have hoped for. Kelsey Mitchell has just been like unleashed by having to play off ball and not needing to do any of the creative responsibilities that Caitlin now takes care of fully. Aaliyah Boston's been pretty good ever since like a slow start to the season. They have just enough role players filling in with Lexi Hull and Melissa Smith and, these lovely international bigs and Temi Fagbenle and Damaris Dantas that have shown up recently. But I think, they're kind of just a team like they need to hit a lot of shots, and they're going to be going up against two teams potentially. Well, they're going to play Connecticut. So they're going up against a team that really limits the volume of 3-pointers that
Mhm.
technically they're not set against Connecticut. I should rephrase that. There is a slight possibility that Connecticut could fall to number 4 on the final day of the season. And then Indy would face Las Vegas, which would be DEFCON 1,
Yeah.
for the Fever.
Yeah.
So let's assume they're playing Connecticut. It's a team that likes to limit 3-point attempts, which Indy obviously thrives upon because that's what Caitlin creates. And they are good at mucking up the pace and preventing the Fever from getting out in transition. So it's an interesting, defense offense battle. And it's kind of a nice story because the opening night of the regular season was Caitlin playing against the Connecticut Sun. And we saw just how difficult it was going to be
Yeah.
for her, to start her career. And I think the evolution, over the course of the season, they finally beat Connecticut in their final meeting, that 4th regular season game. So to go from 10 turnovers on opening night and it looking like, oh my God, is Caitlin going to manage in the WNBA, to, hey, we're in the playoffs, like maybe we can spring an upset. I wouldn't be surprised if they won in the first round. Like I currently have that picked for them to win in the first round just because I don't believe in picking straight chalk all through. It's just boring. But I do think Connecticut is still favored in this situation.
Do you think we'll get some shenanigans from the WNBA to help? We just saw the Lakers, according to anybody who isn't a Lakers fan, get into the playoffs now for 2 years in a row because they have a crazy free throw differential. Do you think we'll see any? Do you think we'll get any Tim Donaghy moments just to make sure Caitlin gets like an extra few playoff games here and there?
I don't think the W can manage that. It's only a 3-game series, so theoretically, like it's very easy to manipulate. You could just, throw one game, and I use throw in like very big quotes. I don't think that's
Yeah.
gonna happen, but it seems
Sabrina,
a
do
little
you
bit
want to
more.
completely detach from any of the professionalism that you have built to this point and accuse the WNBA of just absolutely manipulating the results here?
Yeah.
You don't want to do
I
that?
don't think that's gonna happen. I don't think it's gonna happen. But again, I'm saying it's a lot easier for shenanigans to affect a playoff series in the first round because it's only 3 games. Like if there is a large free throw differential in that first game, all of a sudden Connecticut's out of home court advantage and Indiana just needs to win one more game. But no, I don't think that like I do think we're probably gonna have to buckle up for some, oh my God,
Ooh.
here's a hard foul. Like what are they letting go of? What are they letting go? Like
Or
how like
or
the
the
game always
response
gets more
to a
physical.
free throw differential, like
Yeah, yeah.
that'll be kind of
I'm,
nonsense.
just get ready. Like things are gonna get a little heightened, a little bit more intense. You and I've talked about this. Like I feel like I've done a pretty good job of staying away from all of this
Yeah.
stuff, but then like my dad is not even online, but he'll call me and be like, "So is it true that they're really like being like physical with Caitlin and bullying her?" And I'm like, "Dad, where are you even getting this from?" And he's like, "Oh, I read the news." I'm like, "What news are you
Fox
reading?"
News mostly, yeah. Like, the is it like it with how things are kind of positioned now, New York Liberty are at
Mhm,
the 1 spot, the Aces are at the 4 spot. That makes
correct.
it, that takes out the possibility of them meeting in the finals.
Mhm.
Um, one, there's no wiggle room there potentially, right? It looks like that's pretty set.
Vegas could technically rise up to 3 if they win on Thursday and Connecticut loses, but Connecticut is playing Chicago, and Chicago is down essentially 5 starters, so I don't believe that they'll be winning that
Hmm.
game.
Do you think, like, if it's Liberty, Aces, and then the field, do you think it looks like that again, or do you think like the Lynx could jump up there and take, beat the Liberty or in the finals, or the Aces could take care of business, but then have a worse matchup against one of the other teams?
Yeah, I currently have the Lynx winning it all. I
Mm,
really like their matchups against New York and Vegas. They went 3-1 against both of those teams during the regular season and the Commissioner's Cup, which is what the in-season tournament was modeled off of
much
for
better name.
NBA fans. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, now it's the NBA Cup, which I think is a little bit better, but Emirates NBA Cup is not nearly as much fun.
yeah.
Regardless, I am actually wearing a New York Liberty Commissioner's Cup T-shirt.
There you go.
Lovely trophy there, but
Their color scheme is one of my favorite in sports.
the
Like
New York
that
Liberty,
that
right? Yeah.
oh my goodness. Like that like Tiffany blue, I think is what it's called, or the sea foam or whatever.
It's
Like,
a perfect way to honor a local landmark and also just
yeah.
be super cool to look at on the
The
court.
Lakers are like, why would you honor a local landmark?
Honor,
Who
yeah, that
does
doesn't make any sense. The
that?
the gap in, like, fan experience between the New York Liberty and the Brooklyn Nets is so shocking to me that, like, everybody considers Barclays the most dead arena in the world when it comes to men's
Mhm.
basketball, and potentially the most exciting place to watch a women's basketball game. It's so funny. Same ownership, same place, and yet entirely different ways of approaching
Yeah.
things, but that's
Ben
besides the point.
Simmons plays on the men's side of things. That kinda
True, even before that, though.
takes the air out of everything. No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Um,
Like I said, I have Minnesota winning. I wouldn't be surprised with any of those 3 teams, Minnesota, Vegas, or New York. But I technically Connecticut is ahead of Vegas in the standings. I just don't think that they have the juice, like, perimeter offense to compete with those other 3 teams, although they have been a shockingly good matchup with the Lynx all season. It's one of those, like, fun rock, paper, scissors situations where, like, Connecticut cannot beat New York. New York cannot beat Minnesota, but Minnesota really struggles against Connecticut, so it's just whatever way they
mm,
all find themselves against each other, you know?
yeah.
Um,
Well, whoever has to go through both of those, like 2 of those 3 teams is
mhm.
gonna like, that just seems like a murderer's row.
I mean,
Like, that just seems
someone
like
who
too
wins the championship is probably gonna have to do that.
Yeah, yeah. All right, final thing, last kind of topics that we could get to. I did send you an image of the Lakers jerseys.
Mhm,
I'll put them up on the screen here one more time and hurt my own soul. The one thing that does help, I forgot to put this up on the show last night, but these are the Celtics City ones. That makes me feel a little bit better.
mhm.
That's worse. That's way worse, I think. Um, the fact that we might see those 2 jerseys go up against each other, like there's a non-zero chance of that happening.
Heinous.
Um, that's what the NBA deserves. That's what Nike
Yeah.
deserves. But what do you like? I had an entire show about it yesterday. I tweeted about it after the show because it bothered me so much. And I think the
Mhm.
thing that annoys me the most is just how boring and uninspiring they are. They just like the terminology I used on Twitter was that they look like the kind of jersey a tech bro would wear as a vest over a dress shirt. And I think you need to avoid that brand of human being as much as you possibly can. So like what like I don't know. This happens a lot, and you're very good at calling me out on it. But am I overreacting to how terrible this jersey is?
I mean, Nike is producing a different jersey for 30 teams every single year. That's happened since what, like 2017 when this city jersey
Hmm.
phenomenon started. It's too much. There's no way that you can possibly come up with something interesting and, like, aesthetically pleasing that many times over and over again. It's just a flood of content, right? Like, there's too much content. We don't need all of this. And
Yeah,
I don't necessarily blame Nike because they're in an untenable position of having to, you know, find something creative every single year. I blame the NBA for putting them in this position of, hey, we need more stuff for people to buy over and over again, and it just looks like crap. Like you said, it's not just the Lakers jersey. I'm looking at 30 jerseys in front of me right now, and maybe a couple of them look interesting. Like, I've always been a fan of the Charlotte, like, mint green situation with their pinstripes. But
hmm,
that's something that's been done before, right? Like, it's not a new concept for the Hornets. So, yeah, I think it's just a bad idea to consistently be creating new jerseys. I really do wonder what the net differential is in terms of how many people buy these jerseys versus, like, if you just
how much
kept
it
the
costs to
Prince
actually make
jerseys
them.
around in Minnesota all the time, like, would that just do better for you? If you just kept the Mamba jerseys around for the Lakers or just, brought back more retro jerseys, like you mentioned, Jerry West just passed away. Like, why don't they wear the Minneapolis jerseys a few times this year? I
Yeah.
don't know if it's actually benefiting the league's bottom line. It has to be for them to keep doing it. Like, I don't think they would willingly be putting themselves in a financial hole. But if it's, I just wonder if like the marginal profit is worth this terrible image coming on your screen of like Lakers Celtics in this black monstrosity
Yeah.
versus like whatever the Celtics are wearing that doesn't really remind me of, leprechauns and parquet and all of that, you know, Boston lore. I hate it. I hate new jerseys every year. I hate that we've gone away from, two jerseys and one alternate for most teams. I don't understand. Like there's always clashing things on the court. It's ugly to look at. The chyrons make no sense because like one color should be corresponding to one team and like they don't always match on the score bugs.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of alternate jerseys all the time. If you keep making them alternate jerseys, like there's no magic to it. There's no extra special feeling about it. We get these like stupid puff pieces every so often about like, oh, well, these are like the 5 elements from Washington, D.C. that the Wizards try to incorporate in their district uniform. It's like, none of these things matter after a certain point. Like it's all just garble and PR nonsense. And it can't be making them that much money. Like I refuse to believe that this is a successful business strategy. It's so annoying for the fans.
Yeah. I actually think it's hurting the NBA. Like it's having in terms, because like generally speaking in sports, you're going to want to follow what the NFL does. They have figured this out. They just grow better than everybody. They've done things better and smarter. They have a better sport to work with. They have, they have certain advantages.
Calendar works.
Yeah. But like you get like one throwback jersey a year. I think they literally limit. I think they're tweaking it slightly, but they have limited the number of helmets that teams can utilize because they know the value of like what that super cool helmet's going to look like every year. There are limits on like what types of tweaks teams can make and all of that stuff. And, if I turn on a Laker game and it's against the Celtics and both teams are wearing like black gradients or like a dark gray against a black or something like that. Like how am I supposed
to black, by the way, too much black and gray. Those are not colors. They're like,
yeah, well, they're just so easy, and like, all right, fine. You want to do an alternate or something like that, then get creative. Like, can we do like, this is just nonsense. Like I have it off. The reason I'm looking off screen is because I have it in the text that I sent you earlier. And I'm going to have to send a few texts to you just to make sure I get that away from my screen every so, or send other texts to other people so that I don't have to see that thing anymore. Because like it like borderline angers me just how cheap it is. And a lot of people have made the comparison and the link between it and this offseason where it seems to have taken them by surprise. Oh shit, we have to design another jersey. Oh damn, we have to sign somebody.
Sure this was
what the hell? D'Angelo Russell opted in? We have to trade him now?
Yeah. I do think these jerseys get announced or they get decided on a couple of years ahead of time just to make sure like the production is all in the works. But
yeah,
I mean, nothing about this lineup of 30 jerseys suggests any sort of foresight or
plan.
Yeah.
Ugh. What
a lot of them just look very similar to previous jerseys anyway. So like, why do we have to come out with a new one that's like minorly different?
Just it's like cars.
To make more money.
Right? You have to release a new car every year. You have to release a new 2K every year. I'm probably not going to get a 2K copy now because of that comment. Shit. All right. Well, before we really do get you out of here, we have a few minutes left. The Lakers start training camp here in a matter of weeks, and we have JJ Redick staring off into the distance, sounding super bored about playing in Palm Springs. And I can't lie to you, Sabrina. I have zero good feelings about this season. I'm really, really nervous that this whole thing might be a disaster. You're lucky enough to kind of take a step back, right? I had Philip on the show yesterday, who was also kind of taking a step back from his like Lakers fandom and stuff. Do you like, what's your level of interest in this season going in? Is it like, I guess that'll be something to write about in the background or write with that on the background. Like where do you sit on this season going in?
I mean, the Lakers are like the longest standing relationship of my lifetime, you know? I mean, that's like it's just been a part of my life forever, right?
Yeah.
And every year that I think, even like the tanking years when I thought, you know, like it's gonna be a different experience this year, like I can't always root for wins. Like I just every time ball tips on opening night, I'm in, I'm hooked, you know, like
Yeah.
I can't help it. Like obviously I don't have to get into, you know, the minutia of everything and like dissect every word that JJ Redick says or what LeBron says and the passive aggressive nonsense of all of it. Like I'm glad to be removed from that part of it. But
Hmm.
the fact remains, like when they play basketball, I'm gonna be significantly invested in what that product looks like on the court. And it was funny because last night I was at a Sparks game and Raj was there, and fellow friend of the show, Miriam Swanson, was there.
Hmm.
And I got to introduce Miriam to Raj as the most optimistic Lakers fan, you know, in this space. And she just starts peppering him with like, so I mean, you think the JJ thing is gonna work? And Raj like goes into his like mind the game analysis. And like it was just a wonderful situation where like even Raj can't like really put the most optimistic spin on what is coming. Keep saying like I think we're gonna be better, you know, than we were last year. And he's like, you know, we won 47 games last year, and then like gets into these caveats about LeBron and AD being healthy and yada yada yada. And like
Hmm.
I'm at the point where like even Raj is not helping me put the most positive of spins on this upcoming season. But like the way I think about it is we've got LeBron James. I just adore watching LeBron James play basketball. And that's
Yeah.
kind of what the Olympics reminded me is that like, even with all of the ancillary nonsense and the fact that D'Angelo Russell is going to be sharing a court with him and like probably other players who I do not care to have on my favorite basketball team. Um, it's still very cool to have LeBron James. Still very cool to have Anthony Davis. I am intrigued by the prospect of JJ Redick, you know, two biggest basketball brands in the world, right? Like Duke and the Lakers. And for them
Yeah.
to both collide my interests in one is like, it's not exactly uninteresting. So yeah, I think it's going to be theater at the very least. But the general like confusion to me of like the Western Conference makes me just have a little bit of hope that the Lakers could just like sneak their way through with a couple things. But I don't know. I'm trying not to get my hopes up. It's going to happen in like a month. I'm just preparing for it. So, uh, you know, it is what it
I
is.
that sentence that you said about Miriam and you and Roz sitting there at a Sparks game made me like single-handedly made me want to move back just to be there, be a wall like a fly on the
Fly on
wall for
that
that
wall,
moment.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like Jen asked me yesterday, so do you think the Lakers are gonna be any good? And I was like, no.
I think they'll be fine, you
You
know?
know, like well, that's the thing is I don't think they'll be bad, you know.
Mhm.
Like again, these jerseys are kind of a perfect encapsulation of like I could see a 12-year-old version of me getting excited about those jerseys, right? Because I
I just
wouldn't have
remembered
cared
one
about
thing about
tradition
the
at that point.
jerseys that really bums me out now.
What's that?
Well, didn't the Lakers wear the city jerseys during the in-season tournament last year? Like, that was the jersey they wore for every single one of
Hmm.
those games.
Hmm.
So, my literally, the only thing I enjoyed about the 2023-24 season was the in-season tournament. I know
And
we
they're
had
gonna be
back and
wearing
forth
these.
about this. I genuinely enjoyed the tournament.
So
And
did Philip. I don't know why so many people
for
I
that
really
to
respect
be,
love
like
that stupid tournament. I don't get
just sullied by these terrible jerseys makes me hate them even more.
it. But like, yeah, I just the Lakers are basically like they're just gonna be there. And look, like there's value to that, right? There, it's nice that you'll be able to turn on a Lakers basketball game once things kick off in October, and 3 out of the 7 nights a week or so on average, maybe
Mhm,
4, you'll be able to watch LeBron James play basketball, and you'll be able to watch Anthony Davis play basketball. And the majority of those games, they'll probably win. You know, they'll probably win more often than they'll lose.
mhm.
It's hard for me to think of the Lakers as now being just good enough to just be there, just good enough to like take up that part of my life. It's kind of like a TV show that, was once great, and
Just sort of
it
finishing out the last seasons, you know?
yeah, like Boardwalk Empire to me is kind of what I think of, right? It's like the
Mhm.
first couple seasons of Boardwalk Empire were insane. They were so effing good. Like all of the vibes about the show were incredible. And then by the end of it, I was literally just watching it to get to the end. I just need to know, even though it was based on a true story and I probably could have just Googled,
Looked it up.
I needed, I felt the need to watch to the end of that show. And I, I kind of feel the same way about like the Jeannie Buss Raw Palinka experience, where it's like literally at the beginning was great. They won a championship. Things felt
So
so
exciting.
great. It was so exciting to not have Jim Buss in my life anymore, and Chaz and that entire joke of a franchise. And it was like, oh my God, this is so nice. And then like now we're on season 7. We've had contractual disputes with enough of the actors to where they've just asked off of the show. The writers are just like hitting copy and paste. They're using AI to write the script now. And I just want to get to the end. I want to get to the end to where like Guggenheim gets in there, and now we have a brand new show again. Like that's how I feel about it. And I guess this season is just like one step along that path. But Sabrina, I've taken up. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking like it wasn't that long ago where the Lakers had competed in half of the NBA finals in like league history. And now we've been in one in the last 14 years. It's a big drop off from 50%.
Yeah. I remember along those same lines, like the Lakers had only missed the playoffs, 4 times for the first like 30 years of my life, and now without, if not for the play-in tournament, they wouldn't have been in the been in the playoffs the last like 2 seasons.
No, they were the 7 seed and the 8 seed. That's playoffs.
Oh no, that's right. Why am I blanking? Oh,
might have changed the incentives, but
I don't.
The fact that we don't own our pick this year, like I don't think that gives me any confidence about what the season is going to look like, because the last time we didn't own our pick, we gave up the number 8 pick to the New Orleans Pelicans. So it's not as if we were, worried about sending away something good.
Yeah. Sabrina, this has been an absolute blast. I want to give you time to plug all of the great stuff that you're doing at The Athletic in covering women's basketball. So what should we be looking for as we ramp up to the WNBA playoffs, as college basketball is right on the corner? What should we be looking for?
Yeah, so just basically every day at The Athletic, we'll have something playoffs related. Putting out my awards ballot, I think tomorrow, for all of the, MVP, 6th player, most improved, all of that good stuff, which very grateful that I get to vote on for another year. So that'll be coming out. Big playoff preview showing up on Sunday before the games start. And it's ridiculous to think that college basketball practices start within like 7 to 10 days, and that'll be coming on our screens real quick. I've already have like a preseason top 25 up, and my favorite draft prospects in this class on the site too. So you can check those things out and listen to the Athletic Women's Basketball Show, which comes out every Tuesday. I think, humbly, I think it's the best women's basketball podcast out there right now. So listen to that.
I agree. I agree with you on that front. Thank you a ton for hopping on, Sabrina. It's always a blast. And I think so. Tomorrow we have Keith Parrish on to talk Memphis stuff, and that should just about take us through the end of the week. So until then, and until the next time you guys hear from me, I'm Anthony Irwin. That was Sabrina Merchant. This has been the Lakers Lounge. Have a good one, everybody.